Okay, welcome back to the Rub Some Dirt on It podcast. I'm very excited about my guest today, Andrew Wagoner, Master Andrew from Capital Karate is joining us today. Very cool because we've been talking a lot of baseball recently, and now we're going to get into something that is still youth sports, youth coaching, but on the karate side of it, the martial arts side of it, and very interested in his perspective on how the best way to go about coaching young stars to be the best they can possibly be. Andrew, thank you for being here. I appreciate you joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. Glad to be here.
So, Andrew, you're the owner of Capital Karate. That's been an exciting adventure, I know.
Oh yes, it's been an exciting year.
Yeah, but you've been you're a karate master. So, what is that? Fifth degree black belt?
That's 5th degree black belt.
Okay,
so that means you've done martial arts karate for over 25 years.
So, have you done other martial arts or only karate?
So my main focus and background is karate. While I was in college in Charlotte, I trained at a martial arts school, leadership martial arts, in MMA. Mm-hmm. It was a family martial arts school, so not like your MMA gyms or anything. But they did judo and Brazilian jiu-jitsu and kickboxing.
Wow, all at the same place.
All at the same place. And so I have a very minuscule experience in those 3 areas as well.
So how long have you been actually training other students in karate?
I have been teaching for 22 years.
22 years. And you're only about 27.
Yeah, right? Exactly. I started when I was 9. No, I started teaching when I was 14.
Yeah.
I'll be turning 36 in June. So, yeah, about 22 years of teaching and working with students and kids. And
what do you get out of teaching? What's the joy of it for you?
So, I just enjoy watching students hit goals and feeling accomplished. Unlike other sports where, a lot of times the focus is winning the game and getting the best players on a team so you can achieve that goal, which I think is important and awesome. Martial arts, two things. One is an individual activity for the most part. It's about that kid, that student, and how far they come. And two, martial arts schools, they're not just attracting athletes. They're going to attract those students and those kids who may not play football, basketball, baseball, soccer. That may not be their skill set. And yet they're able to find accomplishment and success in the martial arts and in karate, which is nice. And so to be able to see those students who have gained some athletic ability and improve focus, improve confidence, improve discipline, that's huge. Mm-hmm. And to be able to talk with parents just like yourself and hear about the journey that their student has had going from point A to point B is just phenomenal.
Yeah. Did you play any other sports growing up?
Like most kids, I did soccer when I was 4. I did basketball, middle school church league.
Yeah.
None of them worked out.
Right.
I really barely remember soccer. Basketball, I was only good at one thing, and that was fouling, okay, which is not part of the game. So where karate was kind of my niche.
Yeah. What draws you to the martial arts aspect of it?
Again, for me, I think just the individualized nature of it, mm-hmm. of me being, compared to myself and how far I can go, is awesome and is nice. It's great to be able to have that spotlight versus, having that team atmosphere, which I think is important and important to learn about. But you can kind of get lost in that.
Yeah. So we've had a couple other, coaches on the podcast, and mostly baseball coaches right now since it's baseball season, but they've talked about, I've asked them tips on what are some of your tips about coaching and being a coach of a baseball team. And a lot of them have said a structured practice, right? When you have a group of kids, and mostly kids, you have some adults in there, but it's mostly kids, and there could be upwards of 40 to 50 kids at a time, depending on who decides to show up that day.
Yeah.
Like, how do you go about structuring your game plan, if you will, for a class?
Sure. So structure is super important when it comes to working with kids, because kids, they're just chaotic, and that's how they're supposed to be, right? They're full of energy and excitement, and so, to leave it to them, the way they will create masterpieces is going to look chaotic. And so it's important to structure things to get some balance in there, some sense of direction, so they can achieve those goals. We do it just right from the get-go. Where you're supposed to sit when you come to class early, how we line up, how do we bow in, doing what's called our student creed and the Pledge of Allegiance. Those little things just help set the tone for class. Mm-hmm. Then we go right into things like warm-up, and then learning our basic moves, and then practicing a form or a combination. And then, of course, our ending procedures of announcements and bowing out. All of those little things, though, create that structure of, I've got this much time to get something done, and I have to make sure that I'm focusing. The great thing about that, too, is kids, their attention span, especially the younger ones, is not going to be, I can focus for hours and hours. No. So it creates many goals for them to hit. Hey, we're going to work on, we're doing a warm-up for, push-ups for a minute. So all I need you to do is your best for 1 minute. Mm-hmm. Hey, we're going to work on this kick for 2 minutes. All I need you to do is give me your best for 2 minutes. So it makes something achievable, so that way kids are able to hit their success points and reach their goals.
So do you guys discuss as a group, because you have, 3 or 4 master instructors besides yourself running classes? Do you guys come together and say, hey, we're going to do this stuff? Or do you set the tone with that? Or is it just a free form, hey, Dylan is he's running the class, and today he feels like doing front kicks as the warm-up, and just kind of makes it more organic?
Sure. So, there's definitely, we do tonight, actually, I will be meeting with a lot of our junior instructors, our ally team, our instructors in training, going over the curriculum for next cycle, what we're about to learn, and talking about different warm-ups and different ideas on how to help students improve and get better. The great thing, though, is there's also a sense of organic and freedom of, here's where we need to hit and some points that we need to hit, and here's a pathway that you can get there, but make it your own. Just like I would say anything, there's going to be times, like a baseball coach, they're really good at playing catch. They're really good at throwing the ball. They're really good at catching the ball. We maybe needed to spend 15 minutes on that. But we've done a really hard, bad job of hitting the ball last week. So now we're going to take 5 minutes and we're going to split that on hitting the ball versus, nope, it's got to be 15 minutes of catch before we go right into hitting. And so I like to give my instructors that freedom of observe the class, look at the class, see what they're doing, and make adjustments. And then I always go over with people on the things that I'm seeing as I'm watching class on how we can improve. If I'm noticing, man, we're not hitting a point like we need to here, our kick isn't high enough, our stance isn't strong enough, and here's an area of an improvement. I always make sure I talk with the instructors to make those slight tweaks and adjustments and advice, so that way they can help get these kids successful and looking strong. But again, I want to make sure they have that freedom to not feel like it's so robotic that, it has to be this and this and this every day, because then it's just, it's going to be boring.
Yeah.
I want the kids and the families to have the same experience when they come in, right? And the same value when they come in. But I want to make sure class is still different. I don't want them to feel like, I already know what to expect when I walk in the door.
It's the same thing every day.
It's the same thing every day, because that's going to be boring.
Mm-hmm. What? So I was thinking about, as you were talking, the element of one-on-one coaching, right? Because in a karate class, everyone's lined up. They're all in their set points. they're doing the action that you've instructed them to do, and you have one, maybe an assistant with you, the main coach and assistant, and they're watching, say, 30 kids and trying to figure out, okay, do they have their toes pointed the correct way? Do they have these smaller mechanical things that are needed to actually do the form correctly, actually do the kicks and punches correctly? So one, they don't hurt themselves, but also to actually, be able to do it correctly and have good power and all that other stuff. How do you manage okay, I'm going to stop the class and instruct this one person, or I'm going to take them away over here so they can, how do you get that individual touch to it?
Lots of patience. Lots of attention to detail. A couple of things that I always talk to my instructors about doing is to not necessarily focus on one kid. Make sure we're looking at the class and to see if there are multiple people making the same mistake. A lot of times we as instructors and coaches, I would say too, can get in the rut or the mindset of, hey, you need to keep your hands up. Hey, you need to keep your hands up. Hey, you need to keep your hands up. Hey, well, I've just told 4 people to keep their hands up. Versus stopping the class. Hey, guys, make sure as we do these moves, don't let our hands drop. Keep those hands here by our chin, by our cheek. By, I'm telling the same person, chamber, bend your knee, chamber, versus stopping the class and telling the entire class. So that's the first thing that I would say we do is to see if there are any similarities that we can address with the class to help give those same details that are needed. 2, if a student is still struggling as we're walking around and people are doing the drill, just give those two points, those 2 seconds. Hey, here's what you need to work. Keep it simple. Doesn't need to be too complex. What's the one thing they need to fix? Hey, boom, focus on that. This is what you need to fix. Give them time to get some repetitions in on working and fixing that. Letting them know when they've got it, and then move on. And then, of course, 3rd, take your time outside of class. We have a great team of multiple instructors and coaches. We also have 5 minutes between our classes. So taking that time with a student, hey, come here real fast. Let me show you. Here's something you can practice at home to work on to help strengthen this area. Again, a small detail, very small thing, not a big thing, to help them practice. And of course, lastly, if we need to schedule a private lesson, we can do so.
How would you describe your coaching philosophy?
I would say my coaching philosophy is every kid's different. Help them achieve their best version. I think sometimes.
How do you go about doing that?
I think sometimes we can focus on this is what a black belt is, and I think there should be a standard. Problem is my standard can be so high that this kid who is ADD, non-athletic, couldn't fight his way out of a wet paper bag, isn't able to achieve that goal. And we miss the amount of growth that they've had. For example, on our Bible test, you have to do 50 push-ups in a minute. We have some kids who are super athletic. And, 25 push-ups was easy. 30 push-ups is easy. Man, okay, 15 in a minute is still a challenge, but they're already doing 30 push-ups. We're talking about, okay, dude, we need to get you 20 more push-ups within a short time frame. Where I got other kids who can't do 1 push-up. So the kid that can do 25, 30 push-ups to get 50 in a minute, it's impressive.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. I'm proud of that kid. I think that's amazing. But the kid that can do 1 push-up, him doing 10 is way more impressive.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that you couldn't do 1 push-up. So for me as a coach, it's what's the best version? Pay attention to the growth, not strictly the result. Because it can be so, well, they're still missing 40 push-ups. Yeah, but they've gained 9.
Mm-hmm.
They physically just weren't able to do 1. That to me is a lot of a bigger deal. And again, most of the times, do I have people who are that far off? No. But for me, it's just that growth. Yeah, is their back straight? 100%? No, their bottom might be up in the air a little bit. Are they bending their knees all the way down, take that chest down all the way? No. But man, here's a kid who couldn't do one push-up and is now excited about doing push-ups. Dude, if he's excited about coming to karate class, excited about doing the workout, even if he's not the technically sound as some of my athletes, that excitement is going to push him farther, in my opinion, because then he's going to have that desire, excuse me, to improve.
Mm-hmm. Now, so karate is not always, just a single class. You guys have expanded it into what you call Team Columbia, which is the competitive aspect of karate. Can you kind of go into and explain what that is and how that works and how you coach through that?
So Team Columbia is a totally different avenue. It's for those athletes. It's for those students. I always tell people, karate, people sometimes will ask, man, there's another karate school in the area. Is that your competition? And it's like, no, another karate school is not my competition. And it's not because I think we're just so amazing that no other karate school can touch us, because that's not the case. But it's the fact that reason kids will leave karate is for other activities. I want to play baseball, soccer, football, gymnastics, piano lessons. Mm-hmm. That's why they're not going from my karate school to somebody else's karate school. Does that happen occasionally? Of course. Does it happen regularly? No. I lose more students to baseball, basketball, and football than I do to another karate school. And so why are those students leaving to go play baseball, basketball, and football? It's because they want to compete. Their self journey is just not enough, and that's okay. They're athletes. They have that drive. A lot of times in those situations, their families are athletes and athletic and have that drive, and that's a great thing. And so we need to give them an avenue to compete. And so in Team Columbia, they're now not just going about how far can you grow, but now you're competing against another karate school, somebody else. And just like any competition, you can bring your best and still lose. I had an instructor one time who said, Andrew, if you go karate tournament and you are giving your best in training and giving your best at the tournament and you lose, was your best enough? And the answer is no. It means you got to raise that ceiling. And so with Team Columbia, the great thing is I always tell people the first year is about growth and learning how to compete, learning what it takes to win. But it's great for those students who have that little competitive edge, that they're going to get bored just being themselves and individual and spotlight. They need that I'm better than you aspect. Mm-hmm. And so being able to go to karate tournaments, we compete around South Carolina, a lot of karate tournaments and other karate schools in South Carolina. So being able to have that aspect of going to karate tournament, going against a different school, against a student who you've never met, and winning is huge.
So what is the karate tournament like? Is it like Karate Kid? Is it like the All Valley tournament?
There's a lot of similarities. The difference is nowadays we wear sparring gear, so we're not bare feet, bare hands, no helmets. So if you watch Cobra Kai, that's unfortunately karate tournaments don't look like that anymore. You got gear on and everything for safety measures, but it's a fun day. It's a long day. There's not a set, hey, your game starts at. You'll get there in the morning at 9:00, and you'll be there for your division for forms, and then later on fighting. But you'll be sitting around, waiting to see when it's your turn to compete. But it's a great time of just camaraderie, making new friends from different schools, and when you do it for a couple years, you come up with these people. You're 7 years old going to your first karate tournament. You go for a couple years, you're going to see the same guys for the most part in your division. The 7-year-old group, the 8-year-old group, then the 9-year-old group, then the 10-year-old group. And so seeing that is really cool and really special, because you build those friendships outside of your karate school, which is pretty nice.
What do you have, like, tips-wise for kids that are competing in karate? Like, if they got to sit there all day, what do you got for them to say? What wisdom do you have for them to say, hey, you don't know what time you got to be ready, but you got to be ready to go when the light turns on.
Yeah, I mean, the tips I would say is, bring snacks and bring something to do, right? Whether it be a book, whether it be a tablet, whether it be coloring, whether it be something. Bring something to do. And also have a passion for martial arts, meaning sitting around and watching people compete should excite you a little bit. Because if you don't like watching martial arts, watching karate, it's going to be a boring day. And then for parents, they're going to be bored. And I'm not talking about all day. I'm just saying there's going to be a moment of they're going to be bored. And I think that's a great lesson. And to just stand strong and teach the lesson of, hey, you know what? Sometimes you got to be patient. You just got to wait. And that's okay.
Yeah.
I don't go to the DMV because it's the quickest thing in the world, right? So it's okay that we have to wait. It's fine. Enjoy what you're doing and enjoy where we're at. And then celebrate them competing. Have something at the end of the day, win, lose, or draw. Have something at the end of the day for them to look forward to. We're going to go get pizza, go get ice cream. We're going to go watch a movie. Something exciting. Whether it be the next day, hey, we're going to the trampoline park on Sunday. Something to say, hey, look, I know it's a lot of waiting, and I know you're anxious, and I know you're ready. But we're going to go trampoline park tomorrow. We're going to have a great time. So focus, do your best, give 100%, so we can go and enjoy and celebrate tomorrow.
I'm assuming you competed a lot when you were coming up.
I competed a lot when I was in high school. So I had already got my black belt, so I already started teaching, and had an instructor. His name was Ron McGirt, who looked at me and said, Andrew, you need to compete in a karate tournament. And he was on me for about 6 months. And I was like, no, I don't want to. No, I don't want to. And so I finally just looked at him and said, fine, you find somebody to train me, and I'll do it. And I really did it because I'm like, I just don't want you to ask me anymore. Just leave me alone. Like, not disrespectfully, but just, I don't want you asking me anymore. So I'm just going to bend at your will and say, fine, I'll do it. I'll do it one time just so you won't ask me again. And I fell in love with it.
Yeah.
I got introduced to some great people. Joey and Jelaine Shiflett. Jelaine Shiflett's one of the athletic trainers at Heathwood Hall Episcopal School. They taught me all that I know about point sparring and really helped me out and introduced me to lots of great people and helped me with my competitive aspect. And that's helped define me even as an instructor. The things that I've learned from seminars and working out on Sunday afternoons and going to karate tournaments has helped mold me as a martial arts instructor on things that I need to do to help make kids improve and hit their goals, but also the challenges that I've had to show that, hey, look, you're not the only kid that's had a challenge. Mm-hmm. I always tell people when the kids in Team Columbia are frustrated with competing, because they don't care what sport you play, you're going to lose. It's going to happen. I'm one of those people who, I'm not knocking the Floyd Mayweathers who go, oh, I'm 50-0.
Yeah, if you're 50-0, that's pretty awesome.
I'm not there for every single one of those matches, so I'm not going to sit. But I'm going, there's some area where you lost that's just not recorded. Right? Like there's an area of overcoming a challenge and adversity. Whether that's a practice, it was not a sanction or whatever. There's an area where, nope, there was a hole in the game. Right? And so I tell people, like, look, it's going to happen. You're going to lose. You're going to have these moments. But here's the deal. The belt you're at right now, you're making those mistakes that everybody else is making. I was a black belt when I started competing. So I was making yellow belt mistakes in the black belt division. That's not a lot of fun.
Getting toasted in those.
Getting dusted. When I competed, I was under 18. They've done a lot to help fix this and make this a lot better nowadays. And so, not to sound like an old person to be like back in my day, but when I was competing, there were no weight classes for under 18.
Okay.
And I was 5'6.5", between 115 and 120 pounds.
So that was going to be my next question for you: is like, what's the breakdown? Is it belt? Is it age? Is it
so it's belt, weight? Belt. They'll do belt. They'll do age. You have an age breakdown, and then out of that age breakdown, you have a belt breakdown, and depending on as you get older, up high ages and more advanced, they'll even do some weight breakdowns or even like a short and tall division. But when I was competing, no, there wasn't.
Yeah.
I competed against a guy who was 6 foot tall, 215 pounds.
Okay.
I was 5'6", 115, 120 pounds.
Were you faster?
Let's just say no. Yeah, see, that's the thing in karate. People are like, oh, well, he's a lot bigger, so he's slow. No, I'm
Not
talking
at
about
6 foot 215.
I'm talking about
you're still fast.
Playing with Gamecocks way back in the day, like those guys can move.
Yeah.
So you're talking about a guy who's a heavyweight moving like a lightweight. And so lots of lessons. You gotta be tough, and you just gotta do your best. I mean, I think winning's important. I think there's lots of lessons to learn from winning.
What's one of those? What's one of the lessons that you've learned from losing, and then what's one of the lessons that you've learned from winning?
So one of the lessons that I've learned from losing is you have to be tough and you have to keep training. Quitting isn't going to get you the win. Stopping, you're not going to get the achievement from stopping. And from winning is preparation matters. Also, one of the things too is I think you have to accept the kind of competitor you are. And know what that is. For me, which is why I like instructing a lot more. I mean, I got to mid-20s and was like, I don't want to compete anymore.
So do you feel like you're a competitive person, or you
No.
have competitiveness in you when it's pulled out of you?
I have competitiveness in me when it's pulled out of me. I would say I have learned as I've entered from teenage, and I was probably more competitive maybe in my teenage years and all that, but as an adult is I am more of the person who I want to coach and I want to help somebody improve than I want to get out there and I want to show that why I'm the best, if that makes sense. There's a mental toughness that you have to have. And I was always the guy, and when it came to karate tournament, I was nervous all the way up into, oh man, I just got hit in the head. I just got punched in the face. Oh, now I need to wake up a little bit. Yeah. Which is not really where you want to start. You're already down by 1 point, and now you're getting in the game. But it just got to the point where I went you know what? I like being the guy coaching and cheering and motivating, standing behind, telling, hey, you need to do this, 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 and this.
But do you feel the competitive fire when you're coaching?
Oh, 100%.
Like when you got your team there and you want Team Columbia to be the best and win.
So when I'm coaching, I feel the fire. 100%. It was just different as a competitor. As a competitor, it was more nerves than calm. Whereas I know guys competing wise who could be literally asleep taking a nap. Their division get called. They get called to the ring and they hop up, helmet on, go out there and are just, pew. And I'm like, I'm the guy pacing back and forth, walking around the gym 50 million times, going to the bathroom 25 times before I got to go up and fight. Nothing like there's anything wrong with that, but it was just different. Whereas coaching, I'm locked in. I'm able to see things differently.
How much coaching can you do for one of your, what do you call them, players?
Yeah,
Team members. So if one of your Team Columbia guys is out or girls are out on the mat,
excuse me.
How much coaching can you do once it starts, or is it's hands off, kind of like tennis, and you can't?
So I can yell at you and scream at you and coach you and talk to you the entire match, but it's happening, right? And that's where, just like football, I mean,
I can't focus on you yelling at me when I'm trying to keep this guy from hitting me in the face.
You got to be the kind of athlete, the kind of person who you can take what I'm saying while focusing on what you're doing. I get 1 10-second timeout. So I have to use strategically. And that changes based on the person, the fighter, there's some kids that in 30 seconds, the 2-minute match, I'm using that timeout in the first 30 seconds. You're down by 5 in 30 seconds, and I need you to change something now. And so I'm going to call that 10-second timeout. Mm-hmm. But there's others who I'll wait until we get to the last, 15 seconds, and I'm going to call the timeout. Because you're either up or down by 1 or 2, and I need to make an adjustment. So it's based on what I see as a coach. Is the gap getting bigger, or is the gap kind of closing off and staying there? But I get 1 10-second timeout that I get to use, per match or whatnot. So I have to use that mindfully, and I have to give something tangible.
Yeah.
Hey, they're doing X, Y, Z. You need to be doing A, B, C. Hey, when they throw this bag, you need to throw a side kick and stop them. You need to, when they say fight, you need to pick your foot up and you need to go. When they say fight, you need to step back and let them run into your foot. Like, I have to give something they can do. Sometimes coaches will use that 10 seconds to, oh my gosh, what are you doing? That's not what we talked about. You need, no. That's not helpful. Here's what you got. Here's what you need to do. Ready, go back out there. But I also have all the time in the world while other people are fighting to talk, to game plan. Here's what you need to do. Here's what's going on. Here's
see this, see that.
You know.
Do you actually film any of it so you can like watch game tape?
So a lot of times parents will film. Downside is, and this is where we have to rely a lot of times on the parents, is while I'm coaching, I can't film while I'm coaching.
Right, yeah.
Because obviously you'll get the camera to the floor, bouncing around. And so I'll have parents, and then we'll have to, find some time to review. A lot of times, again, just like instructing, teaching class, there's some common ground.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody today was throwing multiple kicks, so we're going to work on that next class. Or nobody today was being aggressive enough, so now we're going to drill that next class. Or everybody today had their hands down, so we got to work on this next class. And so, again, when you have lots of different matches,
are there ever
20
matches
kids,
going on at the same time?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. We'll
So
have,
you have one kid over here and
I'll
one kid
have,
over here?
Dylan at that ring, David at that ring, me at this ring. And then I might have a fourth ring going on where it's, I don't have a
One of
kid
your more
fighting, but they're waiting to fight. And it's like, as soon as this round's over, I got to run over here. And then if you win, I got to come back. And so that can be a little crazy.
How many points?
Excuse me.
How many points does it like? How many points do you have to score in order to win?
So to win, it's whoever has the highest score in 2 minutes. It's a 10-point or a 10-point spread. Mm-hmm. Which will shut the match down. So if I go 10-0 in 30 seconds, we're done.
So describe the point system in terms of like a punch to the head, a kick to the head.
And this is where I would say is one of the reasons why karate will always be a hobby sport per se versus football, basketball, baseball, soccer. Mm-hmm. Those sports, basketball, get in the hoop. It's a point.
Cut and dry.
Very cut and dry. Karate, kick to the body is a point. Kick to the head, 2 points. Spin kick to the head, 3 points. Punch, 1 point. But it's got to be effective. It's got to be first. So if I throw a back fist and you throw a side kick and you're still in chamber, but your side kick hit first before my back fist, that judge is deciding in a very split second, was that side kick effective? Am I calling for the first technique that landed, or am I calling the most effective? And there's always discrepancies. There's always, I'm calling the first point that I saw, and that judge over there is calling the first point that was effective. And that creates the discrepancies. And again, it's, what do you count as effective? I don't know. I hit him and then he went down. Okay, well, that was an effective point.
I broke his rib and he didn't do anything.
But there are people that have times, I've seen fighters who get hit with a hard side kick, to the ribs. And judges called they called a point, not enough, and then the fighter goes down. Well, there's no going back. Oh, now that fighter went down, so now it's effective, so let's go ahead. No, that point's been called. And we said there wasn't enough. There's 5 judges, for a black belt ring, not enough pointed to side A over here. Now that we made the call and we're ready to go back and fight, now side B drops. Because side B sucked it up for the point, for the 3 seconds of you judges call. So there's that aspect. Again, because it's not cut and dry, that makes it challenging. Forms, you're looking at things like stances and sharpness of technique. I would say it's very similar to gymnastics in terms of a floor routine. Like, what makes that person's floor routine better than my floor routine?
Yeah.
Difficulty and whatnot. But again, what are we looking for? Well, they had higher jumps. They did more flips. They had a better string of a combination. They were more, if I do a harder move and I stumble a little bit, how much is that taken off versus all I do is simple moves? And those discrepancies, again, I say make it challenging to make it mainstream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just think about it. Is there the Russian judge that always screws you out of the point?
And then there's always going to be in anything. There's even in baseball, basketball, and football, officials affect the game. Mm-hmm. It's just going to happen. Now, as players, you can't let that can't be the excuse.
Yeah.
Again, it goes back to the Gamecocks bowl game this past year. There's a rule with substitutions that, I think that's the reason that it cost them the game. But ultimately, Beamer can't allow that rule discrepancy to cost the game.
Yeah.
You just can't, that can't be the reason. Because, and if you only, which I don't think Beamer obviously focuses on that, but if you focus on, well, that judge, that's the reason you're not going to win. What can you do? What can you control? How can you get better? Because there's always areas of improvement. Well, my hand was down, he kicked me in the head. So, yes, in this scenario, the judge messed you up here, and here. But in this scenario, if you had a hand up and he didn't kick you in the head, that would have been 2 points. So how about you just keep your hand up and that takes away 2 points.
Okay.
So that's what makes karate. And I always tell parents that you have to do this because you love competing.
Yeah. So do you get to,
excuse me,
now, obviously observing classes for the last few years, you guys get into sparring, but you're not swinging on each other.
No.
Right? So what kind of level of intensity does these tournaments have in terms of punching and kicking? And
so the intensity is definitely greater. So for our Team Columbia members, they train a little bit harder. They come in Saturday mornings, they train for 2 hours, and the expectation is definitely ramped up a little bit. Again, that's why we're fighting for Team Columbia. It has to be invitation only. Mm-hmm. Everybody can't compete because everybody's not ready for it. I always talk to my black belts when working with underbelts, don't kick the karate out of them, right? Because for some kids, one hard kick, one hard punch, and they're done. They're quitting. They're out. And it's not that you want to baby them and make them unprepared, but at the same time, parenting isn't like it was 40 years ago. Not knocking parents, not saying parents are doing a bad job, but it's just not the same. The mentality of, well, we're going to stay here and we're going to do this until you get your black belt. Quitting is not an option. It's just not always the case. And fine, every family's got to run their family the way they see fit. No judgment. You got to make the decision for your household, just like I make the decision for my household. Me and my wife do. But because of that, I think as martial arts instructors, we can't just let them get beat up on in terms of just wail and hit hard and wail on them like you see in Karate Kid.
yeah.
No pain, no glory. No, because you don't have any students. People will quit and they won't receive the other benefits like improved focus, learning how to set goals, better discipline, building confidence. Because if the entire focus is just self-defense, and I think martial arts, it should be about self-defense. I believe that you should learn how to protect yourself with good martial arts skills. But most people are probably never going to be in a situation where they need to defend themselves. Right? I don't get mugged every day. I don't get a knife pulled on me every day.
No.
And I'm 5'6", 170 pounds now. Somebody, 6'7", 315 pounds comes up and just wails me in the head without me knowing, I'm probably going out.
Right.
And I'm 5th degree black belt. There's some physics that happen. Again, played on the Gamecocks. That there's some defensive linemen, Bo, that like it don't matter how hard I hit that dude, I ain't stopping that dude.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things where you have to be more aware than what the movies portray with Chuck Norris kicking 17 dudes in the head and just dropping them like this is not reality. And so I think there's those expectations that there's so many other benefits to martial arts along with self-defense that are important, that I think it's important that we raise, in the karate school, tough kids, but also kids that receive those other benefits. Every kid that's going to get a black belt is not going to be tough. And in 20 years, if they quit at 12, in 20 years, they're going to remember every little thing. So I'm going to punish this 10-year-old, beat the mess out of him at 10 years old, and damage physically, his confidence and his abilities for something that in 20 years he's still not going to retain these things I taught. He's got it. That's a continual thing. You want to be good at martial arts. You want to be the next Chuck Norris, the next Jason Statham. You got to keep going.
Right.
Those guys didn't quit at 12 and retain that skill level. So I think that's, for us, it's important from a regular class standpoint. Teach good martial arts, teach good skills, but also teaching good character traits, good life skills, along with the physical attributes.
Well, the student creed that you guys do has talks about all of those individual points.
Yes.
And is that creed unique to you guys, or is it? Do other karate schools use creeds? And I'm assuming the one that you guys use at your school is one that you guys came up with. And
so a lot of schools, I don't want to speak in absolutes because I just don't know. But I would say a lot of martial arts schools have some version of a student creed, some type of mantra or something that they say that represents them. Our student creed is very unique to us. But to say, Mr. Mike, who was the founder of Capital Karate, didn't handwrite that student creed. It was something that he was able to borrow from another martial arts school, an organization. Now, whether or not those organizations and schools are still around and still using that creed, couldn't tell you. But it's not like he himself wrote that.
Interesting.
But it aligned with his values and what his beliefs were and what he set for his school. And so that's why he adopted it and adapted it for our program.
What are some of the techniques that parents could apply for helping kids focus? I think that is one of the, in coaching youth sports, it's one of the biggest challenges that coaches have is keeping focus. I mean, we throw ADHD around all the time, and we've just accepted the fact that, kids only have an 8-second, even adults, but an 8-second attention span. But what are some, and focus is a big part of karate. It's a big part of martial arts. But it's necessary for all sports. What are some of the tips or techniques or things that parents could do to help their child focus better?
So tip 1 should be to sign up at Capital Karate. That's tip 1 now. One, I think acceptance is definitely huge. And what, again, I'm one of those, I think we've kind of overdiagnosed a little bit. Everybody has ADD now. I mean, I think it's one of those things where, no, he's just 6. So one, I think we just have reasonable expectations for our kids. And I think as dads, we're always going to have a little bit higher expectation because we want to push our kids. And I think it's important because if you don't push them, they become lazy. But I think it's also important to have the reasonable push. And when you work with kids, when you coach, when you see how kids are versus how your kid is, I think it helps set those reasonable expectations a little bit better. But a lot of times, I think parents sometimes just, their expectations are too high. Stand still. Why can't you stand still? What are you doing? Because he's 6. It's okay. He's fine. He's bothering you, the parent, a lot more than he's bothering me or anybody else in this class. I guarantee it. It's okay. He's 6. So setting appropriate expectations for your child is, I would say, step 1. Step 2 is having something that they're passionate about, they're into. They're going to focus on a lot more. I give a great example. My daughter Riley is 3 years old. We can put on Coco Melon, and she can stare at JJ for like 5 minutes and barely blink. Like it's like, hello, blink your eyes, okay? Come on. And so to say kids can't focus, well, they can't focus on things they're not passionate about. Now, things that they're not passionate about, do they have to still do? Of course. Do they still need to try to focus on? Of course. But if we can find that passion for things to help drive them, that's going to make huge improvements and gains. And then the third is just talk to them about how we focus. We're looking at the person who's speaking. We're thinking about what's being said. We're keeping our bodies still and quiet. Those 3 things help us improve our focus a lot better than if we're looking around, thinking about what we're going to eat for lunch that day, talking to our friends, or playing in our seat. So reminding your kids about that, talking to your kids about that, and having conversations. If your kid knows after baseball practice, Dad's going to talk to me about how practice went today, and not from a condemning, let me tell you what you did wrong, son, but more of a, so tell me, what did you get out of practice today? What was your favorite part about practice today? What is an area that you want to improve, next time we go to practice? What are some things that maybe I could help you with? Was there a specific drill that you would like to work when we get home? Maybe not today, but tomorrow or between now and next practice. That forces the kid to look for little details and things to remember versus them just getting in the car and about to get yelled at for not listening. And just use your coach.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for. I tell parents all the time, I'm like, use me as the bad guy. When your kid's not listening, tell them, hey, I'm going to talk to Mr. Andrew. Send me a text. I've called people on the weekend because their kids weren't listening. And I've called them on the phone. Hey, what you doing not listening to your mama? And they're like, I'm sorry, Mr. Andrew. I'm like, it's all good. I didn't mad at you. But you listen to me. Why can't you listen to your mom? Yes, sir. And then boop. And so you utilize your coaches in every aspect. That's why they coach, because they have a passion and a motivation. And there's going to be, things that you're going to tell your boys, and I'm going to say the same thing, and they're not going to listen to you about it, but they're going to listen to me about it. Yeah. And we said the exact same thing. But it came from a different voice box.
Right.
And so utilize those tools, because parenting's hard. It's a wonderful experience, but it's hard. It is not easy. So again, the old adage of it takes a village is 100% true. Have a village. It takes a village. You want your kid to be better focused? Then have lots of influences of good focus in their lives.
That's some great insight. Great insight. Now, I end off every podcast with a sports trivia question.
Okay.
So, I'm going to give you a nice easy layup because you're a Gamecock fan. Who is the only Gamecock to be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
Sterling Sharp.
There you go. Technically, not until this summer, but
we'll count it.
We'll count it. Yep. Sterling Sharp. Thanks for tuning in to the Rub Some Dirt on It podcast. So grateful for Master Andrew to be here with me today. If you have wanting to get your kids into karate, I highly recommend it. Thanks.
Thank you.